Right now, millions of people are buying Bitcoin thinking they're early. They're not. They're late, 3,000 years late. Because everything Bitcoin claims to do has already been tried. Decentralized money, done in 500 CE, trustless currency, invented 1200 BCE, fixed supply to prevent inflation. Ancient civilizations built entire economies around it, and every single one of them collapsed. Not eventually, inevitably. The pattern has repeated 4 times across human history. 4 different currencies, 4 different civilizations, 4 identical collapses. And Bitcoin is following the exact same sequence right now, step by step. Warning sign by warning sign. If you own Bitcoin, you need to know this. If you don't own Bitcoin, you need to know why millions of people are about to learn the hardest lesson in economic history. This is the story of ancient cryptocurrency. How it worked, why it failed, and what it means for every dollar you have in crypto right now. Let's start with the most insane example. The island of Yap, Micronesia, 500 CE. They created blockchain 1,500 years before Bitcoin. The Yapese used rye stones as currency. Massive limestone discs, some 12 feet across, weighing 4 tons. But here's the crazy part. The stones were so heavy, they couldn't be moved. So when you bought something, the stone didn't move. It stayed exactly where it was. Instead, the entire community simply agreed that ownership had transferred. No central bank, no government ledger, no single authority. Just distributed consensus across the network. That's blockchain. That's Bitcoin's revolutionary innovation. The Yapese did it in the 6th century with rocks. And here's where it gets even more insane. One of the most valuable rye stones in Yap's history was sitting at the bottom of the ocean. It fell off a boat during transport and sank. But everyone agreed it still existed, still had value, still could be traded. A currency you couldn't see, couldn't touch, that only existed because the network agreed it existed. Sound familiar? That's Bitcoin. That's digital scarcity. That's crypto. The Yapese invented it 1,500 years ago. But here's what they don't tell you. The rye stone system worked perfectly, for centuries, until it didn't. When European ships arrived with industrial tools, they sailed to the quarries, carved hundreds of new stones, and flooded Yap with currency. Instant inflation. The entire monetary system collapsed within years. The same thing happened to every ancient cryptocurrency. They worked, until someone figured out how to break them. And when they broke, everyone holding them lost everything. Bitcoin's second big claim? Trustless. You don't need to trust a bank, a government, anyone. The system itself is trustworthy. But 3,200 years ago, they already solved this. Cowrie shells, used across Africa, Asia, and the Pacific from 1200 BCE to the 1800s CE, over 3,000 years of trustless currency. Why cowrie shells? Because they were naturally scarce, impossible to counterfeit, and durable. You didn't trust the person paying you. You trusted the shell itself. The object had inherent properties that made it valuable and verifiable. No government backing, no central authority. Pure, trustless currency. Bitcoin does the same thing with cryptography instead of shells. But here's what happened to cowrie shells. For 3,000 years, they worked perfectly. Then, in the 1500s, Portuguese traders discovered you could collect cowries by the millions in the Maldives. They loaded ships, sailed to Africa, and dumped cowries into the market. Hyperinflation, overnight. People who had saved their entire lives in cowrie shells watched their wealth evaporate. The currency that had been trustless for millennia became worthless in a generation. And here's why this matters for Bitcoin. Bitcoin's security relies on cryptography, SHA-256 encryption. Right now, it's unbreakable. Quantum computers can't crack it. But quantum computing is advancing exponentially. Google's quantum computer just achieved quantum supremacy. IBM, China, Russia are racing to build more powerful ones. When quantum computers can break SHA-256, Bitcoin's encryption fails. Instantly. Completely. Just like cowrie shells, Bitcoin is trustless until someone finds the exploit. And when they do, everyone holding Bitcoin loses everything. Not gradually, overnight. The Yapese didn't see it coming. African traders didn't see it coming. Do you really think you'll see it coming? Now, the big one. Bitcoin's 21 million coin limit. Scarcity by design. No government can print more. No inflation. Perfect money. Except ancient civilizations already tried this, and it worked for centuries. Salt currency. Used by Romans, Ethiopians, Tibetans. The word salary literally comes from salarium. Salt rations paid to Roman soldiers. Salt had perfect scarcity. You couldn't print it, you couldn't create it from nothing. It had to be mined or evaporated. Labor-intensive, slow, limited supply. When Rome debased the denarius by reducing silver content, prices exploded. But salt stayed stable because you couldn't debase salt. The Aztecs did the same with cacao beans. Each tree produced limited beans, natural scarcity, anti-inflationary, fixed supply, exactly like Bitcoin's 21 million cap. So why aren't we still using salt and cacao? Because governments hated it. When citizens use currency the government can't control, the government can't tax it effectively, can't print it to fund wars, can't manipulate it for political gain. So governments outlawed independent currencies, forced citizens to use state-controlled money. Rome banned private coinage. Medieval kings outlawed barter. China banned paper money multiple times because merchants kept using silver. Throughout history, every time a currency emerged that governments couldn't control, governments crushed it, and they always won. Because governments have armies. Right now, Bitcoin is in the crosshairs. China banned it, India is regulating it, the US is debating a ban. The IMF wants CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, to compete with crypto. El Salvador adopted Bitcoin. Their economy is collapsing. You think Bitcoin can survive a coordinated government assault? Salt currency lasted centuries. Governments still killed it. Bitcoin is 16 years old, and governments are already moving against it. History says how this ends, and it's not with Bitcoin winning. Here's what terrifies me. Bitcoin isn't just repeating history. It's following the exact same collapse pattern that destroyed every independent currency in history. Stage 1. Innovation and early adoption. New currency emerges, solves a real problem. Early adopters get insanely rich. Rye stones solve trade on remote islands. Cowrie shells solve trust in stateless societies. Bitcoin solves government money printing. This stage makes true believers. People who got in early become evangelists. They made life-changing money. They want you to buy in too. Stage 2. Mass adoption and price explosion. More people hear about it. FOMO kicks in. Prices skyrocket. Cowrie shells spread across 3 continents. Salt became universal currency across Europe. Bitcoin went from $1 to $69,000 in a decade. This is where most people buy in. Not early, late, after the gains have already happened. Stage 3. Scaling problems and cracks appear. The system hits limits, can't handle the volume, becomes expensive or slow. Rye stones couldn't scale beyond Yap. Salt became too common. Bitcoin can't process more than 7 transactions per second. Visa does 24,000. The Lightning Network was supposed to fix this. It hasn't. Stage 4. Competition and fragmentation. Better versions emerge. Ethereum, Solana, Cardano, 20,000 different coins. Just like different regions use different commodity currencies, crypto fragments. Which one is the real money? Nobody knows. Stage 5. Government intervention. Authorities notice they're losing control. They regulate, ban, or create competing systems. This is where we are right now. CBDCs are coming. China's digital yuan, Europe's digital euro. The US is exploring a digital dollar. Why? Because if governments control digital currency, they can track every transaction, enforce negative interest rates, expire money to force spending, and shut down dissidents' accounts instantly. Bitcoin was supposed to prevent this. Instead, it gave governments the blueprint to create the most totalitarian money system in history. Stage 6. The collapse. Either the currency dies completely, or it gets absorbed into something governments control. Salt became worthless when refrigeration was invented. Cowrie shells inflated to irrelevance when Europeans flooded markets. Rye stones became tourist attractions. Bitcoin? We're between stage 5 and stage 6 right now. And the scary part? Most people holding crypto have no idea. History gives us three possible outcomes for Bitcoin. None of them are good if you're holding crypto. Outcome 1. Government ban. The US, EU, and China coordinate a ban on crypto. Not just restrictions, a complete ban. Exchanges shut down overnight. Holding Bitcoin becomes illegal. Prices crater to near zero. But the blockchain still exists? Sure. And rhinestones still exist on Yap as tourist attractions. If you can't convert Bitcoin to dollars, if you can't buy anything with it, if holding it is illegal, what's it worth? Outcome 2. Quantum computing breaks it. SHA-256 encryption is cracked. Wallets can be hacked. Private keys become meaningless. Bitcoin drops to zero in hours. Not because people lose faith, because the technology literally stops working. Cowrie shells didn't gradually lose value. Portuguese traders flooded the market and it collapsed instantly. Quantum computing will do the same to Bitcoin, and you won't get a warning. You'll wake up one day and your Bitcoin will be worthless. Outcome 3. CBDCs replace it. Governments launch digital currencies that have everything Bitcoin has, plus legal backing, FDIC insurance, and mainstream acceptance. Why would merchants accept Bitcoin with its volatility and legal uncertainty when they can accept digital dollars that are stable and government-backed? Slowly, then suddenly, Bitcoin becomes irrelevant. Not worthless immediately, just obsolete. Like salt currency when everyone switched to coins, still technically usable. Nobody wants it. All three outcomes have happened before, multiple times, to currencies that lasted far longer than Bitcoin. The Yapese used rhinestones for 1,500 years before collapse. Cowrie shells worked for 3,000 years before inflation destroyed them. Salt was used for centuries before governments killed it. Bitcoin is 16 years old, and it's already showing cracks. So, if the pattern is this obvious, if history screams the ending, why do millions of people keep buying crypto? Because every generation thinks they're different. The Romans thought their empire would last forever. It didn't. Spain controlled half the world's silver. They went bankrupt 4 times. Britain ruled a quarter of the earth. Lost it all in 30 years. America thinks the dollar is permanent. It's not. And Bitcoin holders think crypto is different. It's not. Here's the psychological trap. When you buy Bitcoin at $30,000 and it goes to $60,000, you feel like a genius. You made money doing nothing. You were right. The skeptics were wrong. So you buy more, and you tell your friends, and you become a true believer. But you're not early. You're late. The Yapese who bought rhinestones right before Europeans arrived thought they were investing wisely. They lost everything. African merchants who accumulated cowrie shells before Portuguese ships showed up thought they were building wealth. They lost everything. Roman soldiers who accepted debased denarii thought the government would protect the currency's value. They lost everything. The pattern is always the same. The people holding the currency when it collapses never see it coming. They always think it's different this time. They always believe the old rules don't apply. They're always wrong. I'm not telling you to sell all your Bitcoin today. I'm not a financial advisor. I can't tell you what to do with your money, but I can tell you what history says. If you're holding crypto right now, you're making a bet that Bitcoin will be the first independent currency in human history to survive government opposition. That's never happened before. Not once, not ever. You're betting that quantum computing won't break Bitcoin's encryption. Every previous unbreakable security system in history was eventually broken. You're betting that millions of people will keep believing in Bitcoin even when governments launch competing digital currencies with legal backing and mainstream acceptance. That's a hell of a bet. Maybe you're right. Maybe this time really is different. But Rome thought they were different. Spain thought they were different. Britain thought they were different. America thinks it's different. They were all wrong. The pattern doesn't lie. It's happened 4 times with empires. It's happened dozens of times with independent currencies. The only question is timing. How long until stage 6? How long until the collapse? The Yapese had 1,500 years. Cowrie shells had 3,000. Bitcoins had 16. Maybe it has another 10 years. Maybe another 50. Maybe it collapses next year. But history says the ending is inevitable. And when it happens fast. Currency collapses always do. One day, everything seems fine. The next day, it's worthless. The Yapese didn't see it coming. African merchants didn't see it coming. Roman soldiers didn't see it coming. So is Bitcoin revolutionary? Yes, the technology is genuinely new. Is Bitcoin different from ancient currencies? No, the economics are identical. Bitcoin is doing what the Yapese, the Africans, the Romans, and dozens of other civilizations tried. Create money governments can't control. Sometimes it worked for decades, sometimes for centuries, sometimes for millennia. But it always ended the same way. Government intervention, technological disruption, market flooding, collapse. Every single time. Does that guarantee Bitcoin will fail? No, history doesn't guarantee anything. But it does show you the odds. 4 empires tried to maintain currency dominance. All 4 failed. Dozens of civilizations tried to create government-independent money. All failed. Bitcoin is trying both simultaneously. You're betting it succeeds where literally every attempt in human history has failed. Maybe you're right. Maybe you'll be the one who gets out before the collapse. But statistically, mathematically, historically, most people won't. Most people hold until it's too late because they believe it's different this time. It's never different. The Yapese believed their stones were special. They weren't. African merchants believed cowrie shells were eternal. They weren't. Roman soldiers believed that denarius was permanent. It wasn't. Bitcoin holders believe crypto is the future. History says it's not. The next time someone tells you to buy Bitcoin, ask them about Yap Island. Ask them about cowrie shells. Ask them about salt currency. Ask them what makes Bitcoin different from every failed independent currency in history. And when they say it's different this time, remember, that's what they always say, right before the collapse. The pattern is 3,000 years old. Bitcoin is 16 years old. One of them is going to break. History knows which one. If this terrified you, good. Subscribe. Because whether Bitcoin is the future or just another chapter in the same old story, you need to understand what's coming. The pattern doesn't care if you believe in it. It happens anyway. History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. And right now, Bitcoin is rhyming with every failed currency in human history. The question isn't if it collapses. The question is whether you'll still be holding it when it does.